In the first episode of the Take Support India Golf Awards, you saw
You know, it's funny, they say golf is an expensive business, but I think it's quite a relative term because the game has changed so much over the past year. It's become more than just a sport. I'd like to now invite professional golfer Sweta Galande, Sharad Mohan from Citibank, Sheikh Kurian from GQ, Suman Billa of the Tourism Ministry, HR Srinivasan of Take Solutions, and finally also Shaili Chopra to steer this discussion forward.
It's really an honor to be here with all of you and with you, Shweta. Great year for you, fantastic. You know, I always say that there is no sport, and I think Mr. Kant mentioned this earlier, that lends itself so brilliantly to everything that deals with leadership and integrity. So I'd love to know some of your thoughts about how you imbibe the idea of golf in your life. Sharad, I'll start with you.
What I was thinking about is that the tee shot is really the starting point of the game. And if I compare the tee shot to a business initiative, it is really the start of the business initiative. And the leadership that you put together to take that first step, the first plunge into your business idea. Most of the times you've got an idea that you've got to kind of go in a particular direction. And you cannot see it properly. It has to be, you know, there are curves and there are bends. And you've got to have a view as to where you're going to be going. From a business perspective, it is quite similar. You start with the aim, you start with a theme, you start with a thought, and then you kind of pursue it. So one of the things is that how do you get to where you want to get? What do you have to do? What do you have to look at? And how do you reach there? Is there a way that I can, you know, plan the future of this particular shot or this particular hole that I have for myself? The one thing that I feel, Shaili, is that something that has worked is a thought about creating the future. So it's not just about, you know, predicting it, because the only way you can predict the future is if you create the future. And that's about the right preparation, the right setup, the right kind of preparedness, assessing actually what's happening at this point in time. So some of those things is what, you know, I think
and
is...
there's so many uncertain factors at play. And who knows this better than HR Srinivasan, who's seen so many ups and downs of the rupee, for example, with the technology sector, or what else? Well, moving from Chennai to Singapore and now Manhattan. But I'd be curious to know, how have you used golf for business?
Well,
besides being on my television show.
I think Sharad put it very well, but the way I look at it or try and use that for business is, one, the amount of concentration that you need to have for a given period of time. If you really want to have a good round, you need to have that 4.5 hours of concentration, one lapse of concentration and you're off. And the second one, just like golf, you need to make a lot of mid-course corrections. So it's not that you're going to hit a right shot every time. So you are bad off the tee, then you need to figure out what you're going to do in the second shot. If you have a bad second shot, then you have to figure out how you're going to scramble. And I guess that's more or less life about business, because you have to think on your feet and constantly innovate. And you can't take anything for granted just because you started off well. Doesn't mean you're going to end well.
Well, that's well put. Mr. Billa, it's the one game where it's not, you're not waiting to react, you're actually waiting to act. And that's what makes this so unique. For yourself, do you think, in one sense, the business community, or I would say amateurs who eventually become entrepreneurs or leaders of various kinds, they are really the key to actually popularize the sport in our country, besides a few heroes?
I think the situation in India today is we've got some fantastic golf courses, and that's also become the breeding ground for a lot of talent, and India is full of talent. And especially for a game like golf, which is mental, and Indians especially excel at mental games. So I think it's a great breeding ground. So I think when we have some success stories out there, and some of these youngsters come and break the glass ceiling, as it were, and put India on the map, I think it will encourage a whole lot of people to come and play the game. But it will also encourage a whole lot of people to come to India to play golf. And I think it's a great way for the economy also to look at the upside.
That's well said. You talked about breaking the glass ceiling. I am a big supporter of women's golf in India, and I'm glad to see over 3 years we've doubled the population of women pros. But now it needs to now go into triple digits rather than stay in low double digits, right? So you've been playing for several years here, and you're a Pune girl. Tell me a little bit about how you see the amateur interest rising, the corporate interest rising? Because often you guys play corporate tournaments yourself.
Right, absolutely. I think the interest is definitely there, and whenever, especially when we have pro-ams like BT pro-ams, you see all the people are so much more aware of women's golf, and that's really heartwarming to see. And plus, you see amateurs like Aditi Ashok doing so well, and sort of representing the country so well. And plus, there are lots of girls who are actually coming up and say, oh, I want to be like her, or I want to represent the country, and they actually take pride in it. So it's like I said, it's very heartwarming, and I think the future looks really bright.
I'd love to quote something that my friend Murli Karthik said, and I know he's in the audience. One of the things he said, Sharad, to me was like that corporations love to spend their time on the golf course, but they spend their wallets on cricket. How do we fix that if truly golf has to become the religion for people in the future?
I think the answer for that is pretty simple for us right now. We are here. We are sponsoring this, event. We are actually partnering a lot of the golf initiatives in the country, right? So many of the golf courses, if you would go to, we have the hole-in-one, award that we give out. We have a set of, coaching and all of that. But yeah, like everything, I think you got to have a few things in your portfolio. So we've got something going on cricket as well. But I think golf, especially, we've seen that in the affluent and the high net worth category of our clients has a very large appeal, and we are very, very delighted to be a participant in that.
Great. I'm going to flip that, especially for Mr. Billa, because there is this impression that, golf, of course, is of interest for affluent and the worthy, well-off. But we've seen in India, our stellar players have actually come from middle class. Some of them are actually grown off the game without even having enough of a household to live off, So in India, I think some of our champions are not even elite. I think that's a great idea for us to celebrate. So, in which way could we see in India incredible and the government celebrate those stories?
Part of that perception is largely shaped by the fact that access to golf courses is fairly restricted. But I think that picture is changing now. So earlier you had either the wealthy or the caddy who could go on to become a champ. But I think there's a whole lot of people in between. And I said, because so many of these courses have really mushroomed, and there's a whole lot of training that is going along with it, which was not the case earlier. So you have people who are there to coach them, to train the kids. And I think it's a great way to set it off. And there's I think all across the country, even in the government, there's a significant amount of interest in trying to put this sport on the map. Like the Trivandrum Golf Club, which is one of the older golf clubs, that has been completely taken over by the Sports Authority of India. It's now become a coaching academy for kids who are being picked up, and most of them come from, if not underprivileged backgrounds, from backgrounds which would not allow them to have the luxury of playing golf.
When I first started the game, an evening like this would have been completely unheard of. The Oscars and the Grammys were pretty much the only times you ever see an event like this. To have seen it come all the way and filter all the way down into Indian golf in a matter of, just maybe a decade or so is quite incredible. When I first started playing the game, we talk about equipment and advances in technology. I had none of those. In order for me to get golf balls, I had to actually get on an airplane and fly overseas. Now every single pro shop is stocked to the hilt with equipment available for the players. Coaching came out of golf magazines that were delivered between 3 and 6 months after their delivery date in the Western world. Golf My Way by Jack Nicklaus was my Bible for a long time. Strategy on how to play golf courses, and his thoughts. The game of golf is quite incredible now. When I started playing, the heroes in the game were Severiano Ballesteros, Nick Faldo, Greg Norman. From Asia, there was really nobody. Asaya Oki from Japan. Now, the last 5, 6, 8 years that I was playing on the PGA Tour, golfers in America, star players, will come up to me and mention Indian players' names. For them to have succeeded so well that they're recognized by their peers that are the best golfers on the planet, have taken notice of the Indian successes in recent times. It's quite incredible in such a short period of time. But if you look at Indian sport in general, other than cricket Golf has been our most successful endeavor in the sporting franchise, and it still hasn't quite got the recognition. I mean, today's is a huge, tremendous step to see the sponsors sponsoring this event, JW Marriott, and you look at the names over here. We got international companies. We got Dubai Realty Partners and Jumeirah Golf Estates are here. Again, international partners looking at Indian golf, wanting to be a part of it. It's incredible to see the business leaders of India starting to take notice and do something about it. But at the end of the day, when Tendulkar scores a century, it's a headline in the newspaper, on the front page. And then if there's 2 pages of sports pages, it'll be on both sides of that as well. If Anirban comes 5th in the PGA Championship, there'll be a little footnote, a 1-paragraph thing. I think once the media takes a hold of the interest, I don't know if it's the chicken and the egg, where does it start? A little bit of, we talk about how to take Indian golf into the future. Sponsorship by the leading national companies is one way to go. Support with the government and incentivizing those companies to really invest in a game which we have been tremendously successful at. Access to golf courses. Pretty much, I don't know the exact number, but I'm going to say in the high 90% of all golf courses in India are private and doesn't necessarily have access to the common man to go and have a game of golf. Public golf courses, they don't necessarily have to be the Augusta Nationals of India to start with, but more golf courses with greater access to the person that is intrigued by the game, that has read about it in the newspaper, sponsored by a major company. Once we can get these kinds of partnerships formed with the right incentives, the awards tonight is, again, like I said, a good start in that way. But golf in India right now it's on the verge, and I do believe so. It is on the verge, especially with what Anirban is doing and the support that we're getting, particularly from Mr. Munjal, that's sponsoring the Hero Indian Open this week. And when you think about his passion for the game and his passion for sport, I think it's so fantastic to see the people that are here tonight supporting this sport of ours that I have grown up playing and using to better myself, my intellect, my dreams. And I only hope that more youngsters get driven and are able to flourish. And like we touched upon before, if there was a sport that an Indian could succeed at, would you consider India's fundamental, inspirational growth has come in all sport through yoga, mental discipline, flexibility of the body and the mind, and the intelligence of the Indian that you will see all over the world. The greatest, smartest people in their fields are all Indian. And I think India is like I said, is on the verge, and I only hope that one day we'll have a major champion, maybe some guy wearing a green jacket. It could be Anirban this year. And I think that too will be a catalyst to drive Indian golf into the future. Thank you.
As some of you have said it from the stage, lot more corporates need to come forward and support not just the game of golf, but many other sporting disciplines. Of course, the government needs to play its role. Well, on a serious note, I'm not stopping here. I will continue to do what I have to do for the game and other sports. But again, one corporate cannot do so much. You know that
Yeah, absolutely.
Hero is very deeply involved with the game of golf, doing more than enough. So more corporates, I'm sure there are many sitting here in this room, please come forward and support the game of golf. And if there are government reps here, we need you to be a bigger support for the game of golf. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. It's time for our final panel discussion of the night. May I please invite on stage Dev Bhattacharya, Director Aditya Birla Group, pro golfer Vani Kapoor, cricketer Murli Karthik, Anish Madani from Twitter, and Shay Kurian from GQ to please join me on stage. I guess, Vani, we'll start with you since you're to my left. And, you've had a great year. What do you think for you has changed in terms of your game?
I think it's the experience that's helping me, playing outside and playing more tournaments with more competition. Plus as well, working on my swings, a few technical changes. And mentally, I guess I've grown a lot more stronger. And I think that's one thing that's really helping me, and I have an edge.
Now, I think I'm looking at Anish. Anish, we had a chat earlier in the evening about social media and the presence, of course, that it has, and the engagement and how golf, we want to broaden its horizon. We want to take it to more people, and we want to take it from a niche game perhaps to a mainstream sport. What do you think we can do to do so?
I think one of the things that we have seen over the past couple of years, at least, is that as voices around sports continue to grow, it just helps people connect to the sport better, right? Because today, people want to connect to people. They want to connect to their heroes in a really personal way. So I think the first thing to say is that as a community in golf, the more voices that we can have, and Golfing India is doing a great job of actually, I guess, bringing to life a lot of those. Right. But voices is where we should start from.
Thanks, Anish. Thank you. Well, I guess off the back of that, I've got to have to go to Shay Kurian from GQ, because we talk of sportsmen and women today as not just sportsmen and women, but brands in their own right. Where do you think, as a brand, these our golfers, for instance, need to take their initiative to perhaps reach out or even build a bigger brand for themselves on this global platform?
Well, I certainly think engagement is probably the largest thing. Golf is still viewed, I think, as quite an elite sport, something which is the preserve of the rich and wealthy. And while that's part of the cachet, and I think that is equally important, that it is exclusive, that it has a certain degree of engagement, and that's why I think social media is so great. It just is able to cut through immediately to a very, very large group of people in a very personal way, and you're able to project an image that you actually want to. Right. And a good example would be someone like a Virat Kohli in cricket, who has married so well substance and style.
You spoke of substance and style, so I'm going to have to go to Karthik at the very end there. Karthik, you're someone that's played, as he said, cricket, and you've gone through the rigors of international cricket. You're now a top golfer, I would say, in your own right in many ways.
Vani won't accept that.
But for you, where do you think, as a cricketer and as a golfer, what makes golf special for someone that's played cricket and now enjoys golf so much?
I think golf is special right now for me because having retired now, I don't have the ability to run, so I can walk. No, on a serious note, I think it's a special game. One of the reasons being that when we are playing cricket, and I have this chat with many golfers and pro golfers or cricket fans, and they reckon that cricket is a tough sport. And I say no. I've played this sport for 26 years. Yes, it is tough, but the sport of golf is tough because not one single hole you can repeat it in the world. No two holes are similar in the world. No two similar lies when you're standing at the ball. Yes, you can say that Brett Lee could be running at me and bowling at 160 clicks. But even if I edge, I still get a 4. But if I don't time the ball, the sitting ball from a golf club, from the center, and even if I have a good swing, I might not be ending up at the right spot. Less is more in golf. And as I said, I could be sashaying down the track and trying to hit a spinner, get a leading edge, still get a 4. But over here, can I repeat 2 swings and 2 shots very similarly? No. As a spinner, I could bowl 2 balls very similarly, landing at the same spot. But on a par 3, can any pro golfer say that I'm going to hit the same shot again? No.
Well, that's a very, very good reason to do so. Finally, Mr. Bhattacharya, of course, we talk of golf as Shay said, as still sort of an elite sport in many ways. Do you think the answer to perhaps taking it mainstream is perhaps more public courses in India?
I'd prepare an answer. You asked me the wrong question. So let me...
Go ahead.
Give me the little liberty, okay?
Please.
So there are many golfing minds here, golfing administrators, golfers here who know a lot more about this game than I do. But I noticed something in the way golf is sort of run and managed in this country. I was playing a pro-am recently, and I found that and there were women pros, and some of them are sitting here. The second prize was worth $1,000. Like, what does that mean? I think corporates like us will have to take this seriously. When you decide a prize money, price up the stakes at least 3 times. It has to be meaningful for them to spend time and play this game. and concentrate on the game rather than trying to find ways and means of raising money.
Right. Well, there's a man sitting to your right when you talked of crowdfunding and getting more people involved. I think Twitter is another good handle to do so. Thoughts, Anish, in terms of taking more to the people and gaining more from the people to give back to golf?
Sure. I also think that golf doesn't sit in isolation. I think one of the things that we've been doing is also this idea of showcasing India to the world and what it means to have an Indian sporting family, right? Jay mentioned the fact that we are a country where we have 600 million people under the age of 25. There's enough room for people to play a lot of sports, and all of them can be connected together. We've seen this happen when the hockey team plays, for example, right? The cricketers are tweeting about hockey, for instance. So it's great to see actually athletes come together from different sports to support them, and voices like Shubham being out here today, for instance, right? It's great to be able to continue to narrate those stories from time to time, right? And everyone come together to actually to talk about that more often.
Thanks. And finally, I'm going to end with Vani. Vani, we spoke about how it's still not quite there for a player. The motivation and the respect for players isn't quite there. Have you, though, seen a change as a player over the last few years? And have you seen it as more motivation, perhaps with more prize money, but also respect changing for the game of late?
Respect only comes when you are doing well. So touch wood that I'm doing well, so I'm getting some kind of respect. But I totally agree with what he said, that I think there are more sponsors that need to come up and, help us achieve our goals, achieve our dreams, and we should not be thinking of, other ways to, build our funds up so that we can go out and play and perform. We've got like 1,000 other pressures adding to it, whereas we should just be going out and just playing our heart out and, giving it our best and not thinking about anything else. And I'm sure, we guys are going to do much, much better.
I think on that request, we will end this discussion. It's a great request. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we announce more of our winners of the Take Solutions India Golf Awards, these come as a culmination of not just the golfers' efforts, but also the efforts of our jury. It's not the easiest job, it's not the most fun job, but someone's got to do it, and we have some of the best in the business to help us out year after year. So I'd like to take this opportunity to please invite all our jury members who've been so good to us to join us this evening for a special picture and also a big round of applause as they come up, please.
I just wanted to mention that there are two people who are virtually cheering for us. One of them is Gary Player, who's been with us throughout supporting this initiative, as has been Peter Thompson, the 5-time British Open champion. And with me, well, we've had a very gender-balanced jury, let me add. Kavita Singh, who's not been able to make it here, but I'd like the rest of my jury to be presented. And it'll be fabulous if we could get a nice picture opportunity.